good evening. We're going to give people a couple minutes to get logged into Zoom. Those of you who have joined us, if you'd like to drop in the chat where you are joining us from. All right, we're going to get started. Welcome to Backbones, Women in SCI Health Talk. This program is funded by the Christopher and Dana Reed Foundation. My name is Emily Lacey, and I'm the program coordinator. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be sent to everyone who registered via email and uploaded to our YouTube channel, where you can also find all of our past recordings. If you are new to Backbones, our organization is committed to helping people with spinal cord injuries and similar disabilities find connection and community. I encourage you to check out our website at www.backbonesonline.com to find more information about our program. We are a community-led program that seeks to bring awareness and education about women's health in the context of SCI. To continue to be community-led and directed, we will send an email tomorrow with a short survey as well as a copy of this webinar, which you may freely share. The survey is 5 questions and will only take a few minutes to fill out. We thank you in advance for completing it. In addition to this recorded webinar, we also have a private only for women with SCI small discussion group to unpack the conversation from tonight and share personal experiences and support. If you are interested in the small group, please go to our website and click on the program tab. The link for the program will also be in the chat shortly. I will introduce our amazing guest speaker shortly. We will have a 10 to 15 minute Q&A at the end of the webinar. You are welcome to submit questions for our speakers through the Q&A option or send them directly to me in chat. I will read questions that are submitted. If at any point you would like Monica or Andrea to clarify something, please type your clarifying question in chat. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome our guest. Monica was a motivated sophomore in college as a molecular, cellular, and developmental biology major when a skiing accident left her paralyzed with a spinal cord injury after attempting her 30th backflip. Professionally, she became a biological science professor and received a 40 under 40 award. Her elite competitive athletic career started with Paracanoe, which she won silver at the 2014 Lake Placid International, and started to cross-train with Sled hockey in December of 2013. She is currently on the USA Women's Sled hockey team for her 8th season with World Championship gold medals. USA Hockey Committee member, a co-captain on the Tampa Bay Lightning Sled hockey team with national titles, and is the coordinator for Backbones Leaders Program. Dr. Andrea Woodson-Smith is a professor at North Carolina Central University, specializing in adaptive physical activity and sports and physical education pedagogy. In 2004, she was selected as a member of the USA Paralympic Women's Wheelchair Basketball team. She participated in the 2006 World Cup team, winning silver, the 2010 World Cup team, the gold medalist, 2011 Paralympic team, also gold, and finished her career in the 2012 US Paralympic team in 4th place. She has participated in the NWBA since 1999, as well as hold leadership positions within the association. In addition to participating in wheelchair basketball, she's also competed in wheelchair softball and adaptive CrossFit. Thank you so much for being here tonight, ladies. I will now hand the webinar over to Rebecca, who will be moderating our conversation tonight.
Thanks, Emily. Thank you. I am Rebecca Torres, founder and director of Backbones. I'm really happy to be here tonight with Andrea and Monica, speaking about women with disabilities in sports. I feel like this is a topic that is exciting and fun and doesn't really get talked about a lot. A lot of times, the sports areas are male dominated, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation tonight. And thank you for providing your bios, and Emily for reading your bios, but I'd love to hear a little more from you directly. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into sports, and why you're passionate about sports. I know both of you are very passionate about sports, and this is a big part of your life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. I'll let you, whoever wants to go first.
Sure. Excuse me. I'm Andrea, and I'm an African-American female. And I started sports when, oh gosh, I guess when I was 3 years old. And I think my first sport was swimming. And I also was a dancer. And I also have an older brother who was involved in sports as well. So I kind of followed in his footsteps as I grew older. And so whatever sport he did that I was able to do as a female, I would do. And so I was kind of competing and trying to keep up with his records that he had. And then also I had my role model was a girl who, I think she was in the same grade as my brother, and her mom used to babysit me. And so I wanted to do everything that she did. And so, and those were the actual sports that my brother was not able to play, such as volleyball. And so I was able to participate in just about every sport that I wanted to. My parents were very, very supportive. They took me to every sporting event, every sporting tryout as a child. I didn't even know how to play some of the sports. I didn't know what the sports were. My parents didn't even know how to dress me for sports. I remember this one incident where I was in elementary school and I went for a volleyball clinic and I was dressed in corduroy pants. So I didn't really know anything about sports except for my brother played and I would do the same thing that he did. And so growing up, I participated in maybe four dominant sports, basketball, volleyball, track and field. And then I also did softball before I reached high school level. And then I participated in all three as extramural activities and junior Olympic sports for volleyball and AAU for basketball. And so I would do those year round pretty much until I was recruited. And I was highly recruited out of the state of Virginia, and then selected to go to JMU, James Madison, to play basketball for their women's team. And I developed arthritis while I was there. Actually, I probably developed it when I was in high school, but it really didn't impact what I could do until I reached college because of how intense and rigorous the training is for that. And so through that experience, I had multiple hip fractures until I was unable to play anymore throughout my college year. So I sat out my senior year in college, which was very difficult to handle because of the arthritis in my hips was so bad. I was diagnosed as having hips of a 90-year-old woman when I was only 18. And so that was hard to take and hard to hear because and I know we're going to get to this question at the end, but it was my goal to make an Olympic team. That was my ultimate goal, was to be on the Olympic team. And in that time period, it would have been the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. And so when that happened, that goal went out the door. And so I wasn't able to play sports. I wasn't able to play basketball the way that I wanted to, wasn't able to compete the way that I wanted to. And when I went to, what's ironic is with my story is that when I went to work on my master's degree, I went for adaptive physical education. And the last class that I took, we had to write a paper, and the paper that I selected was on wheelchair basketball. And I had no idea what it was, didn't resonate with me that I was even eligible to play. But I wrote that paper and then went to Texas to work on my PhD. And within one of my courses, disability sport courses, we were introduced to a lot of Paralympians in the Dallas area. And my professor at the time told one of the former USA players for wheelchair basketball that, you know, I had severe arthritis and that I was eligible to play, and I had a basketball background. You all should try and get her on the team. And so they did. They recruited me for the team, and my professor at the time allowed me to miss one class a month so I could practice with them. Because, you know, when you're working on your PhD, you're not really supposed to have that kind of extra time. But she allowed me to have that extra time to participate on that team. And from there, I fell in love again with basketball. I was very timid to go into a sport that I had already set my goals so high to reach the goals, that I really did not want to go into the same sport, whether it was wheelchair basketball or not. I didn't want to go into the same sport thinking I was not going to be able to be as good as I was on my feet. And until I actually started playing. And then the comments started coming in. It says, "Oh, you're going to make a USA team eventually." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know." I'm kind of brand new at this, but you know, they just kept pushing, kept helping me with the training until I did get into wheelchair basketball. And so that was my ultimate sport. But outside of that, like you said in my introduction, is that I was training for, I think it was the 2010 World Games, and found out about adaptive CrossFit. And so I went into adaptive CrossFit and participated in that to help train. But I fell in love with it. I love to bang weights. I love to lift heavy weights. And I found that was the ultimate setting that I would love to be in. But I was doing wheelchair basketball and I had my goals established there. So I just used that as a training component until I finished, and then switched into adaptive CrossFit. But I also did wheelchair softball during the summer times, which I absolutely loved, wheelchair softball. But unfortunately, where I am located now, we don't have a wheelchair softball team, so I don't play wheelchair softball any longer. But that was my journey from being an able-bodied sport athlete, and then moving into adapted sports. And there's my entire life transitions around adapted sports. My career, my family, my marriage, everything is associated and affiliated with adapted sports. And I never imagined that that would even occur, even from when I did the paper, when I was working on my master's degree. It never occurred that my entire life would evolve into a life of adapted sports.
Was there ever a question when you were switching from, you know, into adaptive sports that like, I just won't do sports anymore? Or were you just like,
yes,
into it right away?
No, I transitioned out of playing sports almost altogether. I wanted to be a kind of like a woman who just wanted to dress, you know, professionally. I wanted to wear fancy clothes. I wanted to get the nails done, the hair done, wear my high heels. And that was all that I wanted to do. So when they came to me and said, "Hey, you should, you know, go into USA," I said, "No, I'm done with that part of my life. And that this is what I want to do." This is because my my role model was Diane Carroll from Dynasty. I'm dating myself. And so that's who I wanted to be. It was Diane Carroll, Erica Kane, and my mother was just like them. And so that's the kind of image that I wanted to portray at that point. So no, I did not transition very smoothly into the sport because that's the lifestyle that I was trying to lead at that moment.
Awesome. Thank you. How about you, Monica? What was your journey?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I've played sports ever since I was little. I grew up in rural Maine. So it was definitely I played softball, I danced, I was a skier. I've been a skier since I was 4. And, you know, those are some of the biggest things that's how I bonded with my dad, to be honest with you. That was my really, you know, my daddy's girl. That's how we were able to bond, was to get on the slopes and to see what we could do and to push the limits. And I always had talent. I've always been a hard worker, but I've definitely, for me, it's always come from heart, right? Heart and hard work. Like I am the grittiest person you'll ever meet. Like I definitely like to set the bar high. And then for myself, I set it even higher. And so that's really been a huge stepping point for me throughout my entire life. Not only with sport before my injury, before my spinal cord injury, but after. And I loved skiing. I loved fishing. I loved being outdoors. I loved, swimming. I tried all the sports. I literally I would beg my parents, like, please, please, please. And then the biggest thing is that at the end of the day, I had to finish the season. Okay. That was and I love that my parents made me do that because I had to learn at a very young age that I had to finish the hard things. Even if I didn't want to do it, even if it wasn't going to go to completion, even if I was never going to play it again, that was something that I was able to learn, that if you're going to try it, you got to do it all the way, and then you can change your mind. That's okay at the end of the season. And so, I definitely stuck with it. I loved skiing. That was my big thing. That's what I ended up doing in college. And that's actually what paralyzed me. So I was at the University of New Hampshire and we were skiing, and I was doing a backflip. It was me and 7 guys on this team, and I over-rotated. I tucked my pelvis under, I shattered my hip, I bounced, and I broke my back. I didn't know it at the time. I thought I'd broken my legs. I didn't know I broke my back. And I was packed in snow, so the swelling wasn't bad. But then I got dragged down a triple black diamond trail, and the bone fragments ended up making a complete injury at L1. So for me, it was really, really hard because that same sentiment, like I had my whole life has been surrounded by sport. And I loved sport. I loved, it was definitely difficult to do sports and molecular biology and get all those labs in and all that kind of stuff. But, you make it work. And so that was really hard. It was really, really hard for me. When I first came back, I knew that I wanted to finish my degree first. And I wanted to make sure that I would be able to have a career after. That was the first and foremost thing that I wanted to do. And I started doing sports, adaptive sports recreationally. The sport that I did first, that I did before, that felt exactly the same, was kayaking. And so when I got in that kayak and I could do it with my upper body, and it literally was the same motion and felt the same, that was my little introduction into adaptive sports, because I was like, okay, this feels the same. This feels the same. I can still be an athlete, once an athlete, always an athlete. And so that mentality kind of eased me into it. I went with Maine Adaptive at the time, and also Northeast Passage. And I got in the kayak, and then I started doing it more and more. And then I started doing the hand cycling, and then I got addicted to that too. And so the more I did it, the more I was enjoying myself, and the more I was able to be a volunteer coach. And to be a volunteer coach as a wheelchair user is huge. You can just see that it makes such a huge impact on the people that are participating, on the people that are helping out. That you're doing something, you're like, okay, this is great. This is what I want to do. But that little competitive flame was just flickering, just bubbling up underneath the surface. And it was just like, okay, what's next? What's next? And so I ended up going to Paracanoe. So that was my first thing. So I moved down to Florida and I did Paracanoe. There's over 400 miles of canals in the Fort Myers, Cape Coral area. And so there's so much space to be able to kayak race and canoe race. So my 2 sports were the kayak, the sprint kayak, and the va'a, which is a Hawaiian style canoe. And I actually got the silver medal in 2014 for the internationals for that. And I was actually really shocked. I was eating chicken at the time when they called me up to the podium. I didn't think I won. I really didn't. you don't like when you're first starting out and you're like first in your heat and there's like 3 more heats to go, like you're so new. And I was just like, what? And so I had to put the chicken down, the PDQ sauces, and I had to, yeah, you gotta have a sense of humor with all this. And then I started cross training, using that as cross training with sled hockey. And I went to a sled hockey clinic and told them to come to mine and try this out and all that. And then I fell in love with sled hockey. I was like, it's the exact same. It's independent. I can get on and off the ice by myself. I can go whenever I want. These were really, because that's why I was a skier. I was a skier because of that independence factor. And that was really important when it came to, getting my own apartment or getting my own car. So I was able to get places. Like that was really, when it came to athletics, like that was my athletic independence, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I fell in love with sled hockey and the whole community. And I loved it. I dove right in. I was really honored to have a Paralympian on our team at the time. Declan Farmer, he was only, I think, 16 at the time, and he's the best player in the world for sled hockey. So I definitely was able, I just soaked up as much knowledge as I could and played with them and worked really hard. And yeah, tried out and made the team, and just a pioneer for women in sport, especially in sled hockey. It's exciting. It's an exciting time. We had our first official IPC Worlds, and yeah, let's go.
That's awesome. You both have had, just your whole life has been, this has been part of your life, and this is great. But you're both also very multi-dimensional people, and you're involved in so many other things. I know, aside from being an athlete, you're also educators, you're also advocates in different areas. Can you talk a little bit about how, some of these other areas where you've, and how they've helped you in reaching your goals?
Yes, so I did my master's and my PhD in adaptive physical education, and I did not want to necessarily be an adaptive physical educator in the school systems, but I did want to become a professor and teach adaptive physical education. The one course that we teach, or the one course that we have in our kinesiology curriculums that deals with people with disabilities. And so from there, I always loved, like I said, my passion was sports, and I wanted to find out a way how I could implement sport into the adaptive physical education realm, and not only just implement it within, but I also wanted it to be its own separate entity as well. And so I wanted that to be an emphasis for people to really know about adaptive sports and know that it existed, because everywhere that I've been, within my teaching realm, no one really heard of the Paralympics, number one. They may have seen wheelchair basketball, but that was about it. That's all that they knew. They only knew Special Olympics. And I wanted to push the initiative to allow people to really be aware that the Paralympics exist, and there's a lot of sports out there that people can participate in with physical disabilities, and not only just for people with physical disabilities, but for their family, their friends, ones without disabilities, that they can participate in these adaptive sports along with their friends and their family members at the same time. And then also create support systems for those adaptive athletes. And so when I taught in Chicago, so I incorporated I think it was a it was a disability sports class. And so I created that class. It was a summer class, and I had, I think I had 7 wheelchairs or 8 wheelchairs that I was able to borrow from around Chicago. And so I had about 8 students, maybe 10 students, and we did sit volleyball, we did wheelchair basketball. I can't remember what other sports we did, but they became aware. And so every time that I teach these courses, I always say at the end, now you're advocates for people with disabilities to also bring awareness about these particular sports. And so when I came to North Carolina, it hit me, I think it was right before, either we were right in COVID or right when, I think it was right when COVID hit. I was at the Move United conference and I was attending that. And I was just amazed at everything that was, happening in the world with all the different agencies and organizations, with all the sports, adaptive sports. And I was sitting in church and I said, you know what, I'm going to create an adaptive sports science and recreation concentration within our master's degree program. And I created the whole thing. I came up with all the courses, went through all of the channels that it needs to go through for approval. And it got approved, and we're in our last stage now. It's taken 2 years to do this, but it's in the last stage finally. But it's going to be a concentration that allows people to learn about Paralympic sports specifically, to, if they want to coach within Paralympic sports or adaptive sports, they'll learn how to coach. If they want to do classifications, they're going to learn that aspect. So it's just every different little aspect that comes with adaptive sports. And my push is really for, when I was participating in wheelchair basketball, and this has pretty much been my entire life, I was one of very few African-American women involved in the sport. And then one of very few minorities within the sport. And so since I'm at a HBCU, I said, this will be perfect. I can create opportunities for minority students to learn and invest in adaptive sports. And then at the same time, create opportunities within our community that surrounds our institution to be able to bring those children into our university and teach them adaptive sports and give them an opportunity to participate in adaptive sports. So I'm trying to do two things. One, increase the student population to have leadership positions within adaptive sports, and then two, provide opportunities for kids in the community to participate in adaptive sports, especially in the urban areas. And so I was able to put all of that together. Hopefully we will launch in fall 2023, and then we'll get more people invested into the sports. And my overall largest goal is to remove the volunteer segment of adaptive sports and create paid opportunities for people, because I think that's needed in order for it to really, for people to invest in adaptive sports, is to remove the volunteer component when it's a position that should be paid. And so that's what I'm pushing for. And like I said, that's the education part of my background. But also I met my husband through adaptive sports, through wheelchair basketball. We met through there. Our kids have traveled with us. They know all about adaptive sports, and hopefully one of them is going into engineering or architect. So I told him, you've got an insight that the people who are teaching you don't have. So you can create the accessibility components to every little project that you create. But so I try and bring awareness wherever I go. I help out I'm actually in my church right now with the youth, with the students, grades 6 through 12. And so I'm a youth leader for 7th and 8th grade girls. And so I incorporate it there. I let them know about adaptive sports, about disability sports, about those opportunities. And one of our leaders she plays sled hockey here in Raleigh, and so they get to see from both sides of wheelchair basketball and sled hockey, that we exist, these opportunities exist, and we want to bring this to you all, and we incorporate inclusion all over the place. And so the adaptive sports life that I never knew about has become my actual life in every aspect of my life. And I love it.
That's amazing that making it something in the education system and in the community, so it's more visible, because I think, like you said, people don't know about it, and they don't know that they can participate with their family members and their friends, and also just going out to cheer people on when they're
Right.
doing their sports. So thank you. How about you, Monica? What can you talk about some of your other projects that you're involved with as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's been to be an adaptive athlete, it has showed me so much of that adapt and overcome perspective. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've been able to take into all the different sections of the things I've done, from my becoming a professor in the biological sciences. I have done strawberry genetic research. Fun fact, I actually did strawberry picking when I was ever since I was 14 to about 19 when my accident happened. And so I started in the lab after that. I mean, that was the greatest thing. I was able to like adapt and overcome. I didn't have to give up, you know, all these things that I already knew about strawberries at the time. You know, I noticed that they had like, this one had this Venetian pattern, and like this one was, you know, this kind of color, and this is a Cavendish, and like they were just amazed in the greenhouse. They're like, how did you know the difference between all of these? And it honestly, it's putting that intentional effort that you 100% need that effort, that heart component, in order to be able to really be successful and to be able to capture those opportunities when they come. And so my paper, when I got published at 22, I was from the fields to the molecules, and I helped discover the maternal ancestor of the strawberry. And that's not even connected at all, but it is, you know, it really, really is. It's connected to that. All right, let's try to figure out how can we be able to use this PCR machine, right? Like, how can I do this polymerase chain reaction? Or how am I going to be able to use, you know, this autoclave or anything? And so we would have to put it down lower, or I'd have to have somebody help me. And so it was kind of like being paralyzed in college was actually my greatest blessing, was because I was able to have this awareness of all these really kind-hearted people that were all learning. We're all in that learning mindset together. And so I was really able to, you know, move forward with that career. And I was a professor for a while, for 8 years. And I was able to do it. The best part was that I was able to go from in the classroom in Maine, and then when I needed to move down to Florida to train for Paracanoe, I was able to get online contracts before it was cool. But no, I'm just teasing. But so yeah, that was the biggest thing, is right, like, how can I adapt this to my goals, right? Because like my goal is now I have my career, I have my degrees, and now I felt allowed. I allowed myself to pursue that athletic passion because I felt like I had my ducks lined up as much as you can, you know. And so then I have absolutely loved to do additional projects with. I love working with Wheelchair for Kids. It's near and dear to my heart. They're so sweet, and I like getting them in a sled. I like to run clinics all over the state of Florida, and even we're going to be doing a women's development clinic as well this year. And really to give that visibility of women in sport. There aren't a lot of women that play sled hockey. We're very much, you know, there's maybe 1 or 2 on each team. And so it's a really, really fun sport. And I love to get these littles in the sled and get them pushing. And it's so cute because they're right there beside me, and they're giving it their all, and they're giggling, and they're having a great time, and we're shooting pucks in the net. And so I absolutely love it. I love kids. That's where, you know, that's a big thing too. So to be able to help other children that are in wheelchairs, that, you know, can have a role model to look up to. Like, I am so honored to be able to be that person, because I look at them and I'm just like, you're incredible. You know, you always have a smile on your face. It's, you know, you're always trying so hard, and it just, I love that part. And I love working with Backbones. I love being a coordinator of the Leaders Program. And that has been such a fun experience working with, it's such a purpose-centered job for me. I absolutely love being able to give back to the spinal cord injury community, not only for kids, but also for adults, and helping them become leaders in their own community. And sport is the #1 way I've become a leader in my own community. that has given me a network that I never knew would even exist, because someone's always going to be a fan of something. Just saying. Someone's always going to be a fan of something, and you're going to get them right there.
Well, you talked about a really good segue into my next question about, not being a lot of women in the world of sports. And so I would love to hear from you on like how you were able to create a space for yourself or create a space for other women with disabilities. Like, were there other women that helped you get to where you are, and sort of like, has there been a community that has really helped you, guide you? What has that
Absolutely.
been like to
Yeah, for me, it was that women's national team. Like, I literally was so nervous. I went to tryouts and I was so nervous. And Erica is the captain, and she talked to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, she talked to me. I'm so excited. And I was, I was like, hi, I'm Monica. Nice to meet you. I'm new. And so it was, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's such a welcoming group. And that was the best part, is that's why I was like, I already love team sports, but this is my team. I mean, we do karaoke in the locker rooms. It is such a bonding, close relationship. And the best thing is that we're gravitating more girls and more women into the sport because of how much we're willing to share it. And that's the biggest thing, is to keep, bringing people in and going to those sports clinics. Really, that's huge. Going to those multi-sports clinics, going to your personal sport, creating that visibility, right? Is because with anything, it's being seen. It's going to a Lightning game. No kidding. I have recruited 2 people from a Tampa Bay Lightning game in an elevator to play on my sled hockey team. That is a true statement. So you literally never know. Don't be shy, and just, be like, hey, I play sled hockey. Do you want to join? Or, if they're not interested in that, getting them involved in something else. Because that's the best part about this community, is that they're all interconnected and everybody really likes to work well together. And, being able to share that joy and that physical exertion and that camaraderie, it fills me up. So.
Yes, indeed. I know that, there aren't so many women involved in adaptive sports, that the women who are involved are so powerful, and they empower others tremendously. They make such a huge impact on children, on other females, on other peers. It's just tremendous. With every sport that I've played, there's always been someone who's made a tremendous impact on what I do now. I can just name the ones in Texas right now, Hannah, who's there in Houston. I reach out to her all the time about the things that she does with her adaptive fitness, the program that she's built there, and how much it has grown so quickly. Darlene is a huge peer colleague for me. We pick each other's brains all the time. Darlene Hunter at UTA, and everything that she does is just tremendous, and she makes such a powerful impact on young girls. The women who I've played with wheelchair basketball, the ones who were there way before me, and some of their stories I didn't even realize, how much of a leader they really were. I knew that they were a mentor for me and a leader for myself. But when I looked at their history of where they started and being maybe the first female to participate in certain sports, it was just tremendous. And when you find women like that, you want to emulate what they do, and you want to, continue that empowering of girls and females in the sport, in all adaptive sports and all aspects of adaptive sports. So not just participating as an athlete, but going beyond that and getting into those leadership positions. Because a lot of times when you look at sports in general, all the way around, able-bodied and adapted, when females become women, they take on other roles of their life. So that they're mothers, they're wives, they have employment, careers, different things like that. And sometimes they lose the opportunity to participate in those sports as an athlete. But if they can get into positions of leadership, they can still be involved. And so that's one of the things that I want to, really push for female athletes, is to continue to stay involved in the sport. Even if you don't think that you can participate any longer, at least stay involved and help those coming up behind you, to mentor those people to come along, mentor new people, find those people on those elevators, and get them involved, and let them see that the job doesn't end when you stop playing. The job continues on. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of the women who are involved with adapted sports, they do. They continue the work so that the sport can grow overall.
I
Yeah,
would definitely
and-
echo that sentiment. Definitely. And I think that's what's so important about both of us continuing on committees and being on like the USA Hockey Committee. I think that that's, helping with, anything that is going to, like you said, like moving the sport forward, but also like keeping women in the game, right? So if we already know the game and we've been there, yeah, it's so true. You got to stay in the game.
Mhm.
And you touched a little bit about this, Andrea, about being an African-American woman with a disability, and then Monica, you being a woman with a disability in sports. Like we have multiple and intersecting identities, right? And how have these your identities played a role in, like, has it given you an edge in finding your sport, or has there been barriers because of being a woman with a disability and trying to get into sport?
It's been kind of all over the place, honestly. It's been challenging. It could have an edge, but at the same time, there aren't that many African-American women involved in any adapted sport, truly, probably outside of track and field. But, it was always a question of, am I the token, or am I really, good enough to be on this team? And so that was always a question in the back of my mind, that always stayed in the back of my mind. You will hear a lot of things from minorities to say that, well, we have to work 10 times harder, to be able to earn positions, whether it's in sport, career, whatever the role is, that you have to work 10 times harder to get that position. And that resonates in a lot of minorities' minds. And so a lot of times you'll see the work ethic a lot harder. The way that they receive information may be differently received than others. A lot of times they put a lot more pressure on themselves. And so there are those barriers there just from the race alone. And then you get into the gender component. And when I started with wheelchair basketball, I started on the women's team, but I also wanted to, I knew about the men's team in Dallas. And so I wanted to play on the men's team. And, when I walked and talked to the coach, like I walked to the coach and I said, hey, can I play on the men's team? And he laughed and rolled off. So because he didn't know that I had a disability at the time. And so, trying to fight those battles of, is your skill good enough to participate as who you are versus what you're bringing outside with your identities. And so that was challenging for me. It was also, I would say, a benefit in the fact that I probably have better connections for some people in certain areas. And so I'm able to reach out, if they see, an African-American female participant in a sport, oh, well, she's participating, I can do it as well. And so you kind of want to be around people who, are like you. You might want to say that, well, this person did it, I want to be better than that person. I want to be the next African-American on the USA team, which I'm waiting for to actually occur. And so, those things are in the back burner. But when I was on the USA team, I've always wondered, was there someone before me? And there was one person who I didn't know about that I just found out about, I think it was last year, who was on the USA team, and I was the second. And so, knowing that history, I want to be able to have that next person, have that same feeling of, yes, I'm the next African-American woman on the team, until it gets to, we're not counting anymore. It just, whoever is there, and there's a lot of us to choose from. So for me, it was not necessarily a hindrance, but it was always in the back of my mind. I have to do more than anyone else to be seen, and I don't want to be the token. That was always in the back of my mind every time that I stepped foot on the floor, especially at the international level, because I was the only one there. So that's in that aspect. For disability, it was different because mine is more hidden now because I had both of my hips replaced. But before my hips were replaced, it was a challenge psychologically, because people would say, well, why do you walk that way? Or how can you play the sport? You're not in a wheelchair, so I got it both sides, and just trying to navigate how to handle the pressure from both sides of, you're not disabled enough, or you're cheating the system, or why do you walk that way? And it was very challenging, but I use that to empower others, and so that they still have the opportunities to be great in who they are and what they do. And I just want them to have opportunities and increase the numbers, whatever gender, race, background, religion you come from, just to be able to have the opportunity to participate is what I push for.
Okay, how about you, Monica?
Yeah, so mine was definitely came from being a woman in STEM, the sciences, and also in a wheelchair. That's where it began. I didn't really realize how different I literally became overnight. And I was like, wow, okay, it was already challenging I was the only female in that major, and in molecular, cellular, and developmental biology, and with a focus in genetics. And so like at that time, our whole lab was made up of males. Like even my, our overseeing professor, our advisor, everyone was male. And so it was proving yourself before I even got paralyzed. And then after I got paralyzed with spinal cord injury and I'm using a wheelchair, I'm like, whew, this is going to be twice as hard. So I think that honestly, by being a woman in the sciences before kind of set me up for like a little bit, that I knew like, okay, now I'm going to have to try 10 times even harder because I'm in a wheelchair, because of the perceived notions that, I can't do this or I can't do that, when my brain works just fine. And, I really just needed a little bit of assistance here and there. And so I think that's where it started. And then I definitely, continued and ended up publishing my paper and my thesis and stuff like that. And then it happened again when it came to sport, because hockey is a good old boys club. Hockey is a good old boys club through and through. It is, definitely you have to break that glass ceiling just to get on the team, just to be on the team, just to show up, just to be, you have to work harder. You have to show up. And then you have to stay in the game. And so, and teams fluctuate a lot too with how many females are on the team. So my team's technically co-ed because I'm on it, but at the same time, if there wasn't that women's national team being created, then I would have played on a team with all guys. And skiing was very similar. I was on that team with all guys. And so I think it's, it takes courage and it takes a lot of strength to be able to push through and to continue to work hard and to be like, oh, you're never going to have a hard shot, or you're never going to get that fast, or whatever. You have to push past all of those negative thoughts that are on other people. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. And that's just like fueling that fire, fueling that energy inside of me to want it even more, to be honest with you. And to carrying that through, that passion, to carry that through in everything I do.
And there's a question from someone in the Q&A that kind of talks a little bit about this. So I'm just gonna ask it, and if you guys have something else to add to that. Jen asks about an experience of gender inequity or gender disparity and how you handle that or overcame that.
Like when it comes to like our specific sports.
Yeah.
Okay. So the biggest way that you overcome it is that you honestly keep looking forward. You keep looking forward and you keep your head up and you do what you need to do. You work hard in the gym, you get your nutrition right, you get enough hydration. That's the biggest thing, is you have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. You really need to make sure you're taking care of yourself and get a network of women. They can be in other sports, they can be in, powerful careers, they can be mothers, but get yourself a group of good women that are going to be able to lift you up just as much as you lift them up. That is my biggest thing, is being able to have that girlfriend, or even that, that Facebook group or whatever works for you, to be able to really get that energy and get that, support, getting that support, and being on forums like this. This is really important, to have our stories be heard and to hear your questions, and to let you know that you're not in this by yourself. Feel free to reach out to any of us, even after this is done, and be welcome to talk to anybody. So.
Absolutely. I say the same thing. Show up. Number one, show up, consistently show up. And I always lived for, when I was playing wheelchair basketball against guys, they would, kind of play soft on me and until I would score. And then they're like, get that girl, somebody get on her. And so I lived for that. I lived for that. And I trained to hear that comment. But I also had one of my coaches in Dallas, JT, he always was probably my best supporter. He would tell me, hey, don't worry about it. Hey, you've got this, you can do this. And he was so positive with everything that I did. Even if I messed up, don't worry about it, shake it off, you're fine. Just those little words of positivity go so far, especially when you're competing against the opposite gender, because they're not going to see you. They're not going to see you until you are seen. And so you have to continue to show up constantly. Every day you show up to participate. Every day you get better, whether it's physically, psychologically, emotionally, however you bring it consistently, day in and day out.
Awesome. And that kind of, makes me think of like other young women, other young girls that are interested in sport. And like, how do you think that it's a good way to support them or encourage them to become athletes and to actually see this as like you said, to continue it later in their life, if that is a passion of theirs? I'm sure there are some resources and stuff like that, but what are your thoughts on how we can encourage this next generation of women to continue in the world of sports?
Try everything. Literally try every single sport. And she knows, she's probably done the same thing. We both did it. You try every single thing, because that's the way that you're gonna, just when you're a little kid, you would try things to figure out what you liked. You didn't know that you liked to color until you started to color. So it's the same kind of thing. You gotta try all the sports like it's brand new, and try to not have those preconceived notions that you had before. Like, okay, I wasn't so good at this. Well, you might like it now. It might be different now, because, I think it's a level of acceptance, of accepting where you're at and being somewhat comfortable in your wheelchair. And by being in those environments, that's what helped me the most. Like, I was like, okay, I found a community of people that actually understand me. They actually understand this spinal cord injury and what it's all about and what I'm supposed to do next. And I think that having these, like I said, these communities of women, and really having us rally together and lift each other up. And I think it's such a amazing time to be able to do that, because of where we are now in like 2022. Like, it's, you know, this is where we're really supportive of each other. And I really see this moving forward. And you can even be a paid athlete. Like I get paid, you know, so it's like, it's worth it. It's worth the time and effort. I think that's what's big too, is that like, it's worth the investment, not only to make those connections, but on the exercise and the workout to, you know, there is an investment you have to make to get the compensation, of course, but it's definitely, it's been worth it. I've been able to travel the world, and I'm sure that she has as well. And that's the biggest thing. I mean, the opportunities have been incredible, and I want to, you know, share this with others. So.
Absolutely. I always tell my sons, don't limit yourself, because society is already going to try to limit you. So don't limit yourself in what you have the opportunity to do. So just like Monica said, try everything, because you never know what your passion actually is going to end up being until you do try everything. But, you know, same experience. I never traveled outside of the United States until I got involved in adaptive sports. In fact, I said I was never going to travel outside the United States. But my first trip with USA team, we went to Argentina. So I didn't have a choice unless I didn't want to participate on a team. But you travel, you meet people from all over the world, you connect, you get career opportunities, you get opportunities like this to sit on a panel, to join a panel. Just the opportunities are just endless. And, you know, don't limit yourself. Don't ever limit yourself in the things that you have an option for.
Yeah,
That's
and it
great.
also increased, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It also increased my level of independence. I think that was the biggest thing too, is that I was like, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to travel with these people, and I'm going to have to figure out how to do, you know, all of my routines, and I'm going to have to learn how to pack. And I think that was the big thing too, is that I learned another level of independence, and now I love to travel. I literally just went to Utah like last week by myself. And that's, you know, that's the great thing about this, is that, you know, I learned that I could still travel after. And so, yeah, that independence factor, I mean, just, yeah, it was huge. I think it helped me. I even was able to help people with transfers. I think that's one of the big things, is when you're getting on and off the equipment, or you're getting in and out of a sled, or you're learning how to do the turns or any of this stuff, you're also increasing your everyday independence. So you're learning how to do better transfers. You're learning how to get in and out of a car, or get on and off a plane, you know, so it's multifaceted, really. And so I've gotten so much out of it.
Well, you guys are amazing. You ladies are amazing. Thank you so much for being with me tonight and talking about this. I loved learning about your stories, and, you know, what's important to you and what you want to see in the future for sports. I think we're getting some good comments in the chat. Great presentation, great discussion. And I'm going to invite Emily to come back on. I think you're muted.
Am I still muted?
There you go.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you so much for coming tonight. We wanted to let all of you know that our webinar series is coming to an end. Our very last webinar will be hosted on November 9th. We hope that you can come. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes to fill out the survey that's in the chat, and will also be emailed to you. A recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel. And thank you so much for coming, and a huge thank you to Monica and Andrea for being our guests tonight. I hope everybody has a great rest of your week.
Thank you both, and I hope you have a great night as well. It was so great chatting with you.